People don't understand genius. I'm convinced of it. It's true. Just to say it on the podcast here because they don't.
It can be confusing, sure.
I wrote a
Is
song.
there a specific genius you're talking about?
Yeah.
Oh, you wrote a song. Okay.
My genius. I wrote a country song, and so I made it with the computer, the AI thing.
Sure.
But I wrote these lyrics, and I thought they were kind of awesome.
What were you going for? Inspiration or humor?
I think this is really funny. I'll just
Okay.
be honest. That takes away the humor.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That you think it's funny.
Right.
Okay.
So
that you yourself were tickled by your own creation.
totally was.
Okay. And still are.
I'm tickled to no end by my idea. So, but
All
I posted on X, and granted, that's the wrong place. Everybody's like, no, let's fight about whatever.
Yeah, sure.
But like, nobody liked it. Not many. And so, I think it's funny.
Okay.
But I wrote a little song. It's called "Raised by Flies." It's a country song. Here we go. I'll start it up. Here we go. Hope you enjoy it. This is "Raised by Flies."
Oh, you're talking off the ramp here.
Yeah, it's
on the
a
radio.
new single on the Brant and Sherry podcast. Here we go.
I grew up just another orphan. I grew up in the swamps, but they found me and they cared for me. It's hard to explain. I'd never known love before, and now I'm the man that I am because of what they did. I was raised by flies. That's right, I said flies. Just a pack of flies that took me under their wings. They taught all I need to know, and they helped me learn to show my feelings. I can show my feelings because of my formative dealing with a loving pack of flies.
My formative dealings.
I was raised by flies. I'm too proud to deny how they patiently taught me in their little wordless ways. I had nowhere to go. They surrounded me. And so I'm here today. Yeah. I have to wipe my eyes when I remember those flies. They were key in my formation. They came to my graduation. I got pictures of me and of them in the good times and the bad. Well, we only got so much time allotted. My uncle told me just before he got swatted. We all wiped our eyes. They each wiped their 5 eyes. Yeah, flies have 5 eyes. And I know it 'cause
Oh, yes.
was raised by I was raised by
Wow. Yes.
So, did you catch that? They wiped their 5 eyes. Yes.
Yeah.
They each have 5 eyes.
I
Because
caught.
flies have 5 eyes.
Yes, and I also caught like that the anticipation of somebody saying, "Wait, what?" So I was raised by flies.
right.
What? That's right.
right, I
I said
said
flies.
It was a buzzword for quite a while. It might still be, but it's the word radical when it comes to like faith stuff.
Yeah.
I want to have a radical faith. I want to be radical. I want to. Okay, I'll tell you what radical is. Somebody puts you down on social media, you stop and you pray for them. Now you're talking.
Yeah.
Or somebody just subtly puts you down in person or on an email. You stop and pray for them. Like, that may sound so strange. Yeah, I said it's radical. Of course it's strange. But this is exactly the stuff Jesus told us to do.
This is how we are disciples.
Yeah. In fact, he talked about that in Luke. He talks about this very thing over and over. And then he says, why do you call me Lord but don't do what I say? This is what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you got your theology in order, but you're not doing the thing about loving your enemies. Like, that's what I'm talking about. Oh, this thing about Father's Day, it said older dads, so those are guys like 65 plus, especially just want to interact with their kids or grandkids or whatever. They don't want any gifts. And I was thinking about that because when I was somewhat younger, I thought, okay, yeah, that's probably because they're lonely. But the thing is now that I'm getting older, I'm not there yet for a while, but I don't think it's because they're getting lonelier necessarily. It's more like, wait. I know what actually matters now. Honestly. And when you realize that, it's like, okay, I just want to be around these people. 1 2 1 2 check.
All right. Do we talk about current scandals or no?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one of them.
You sent it to me, but I had already. Who sent it to me? Somebody had already sent it to me, and then I started listening to whatever the report or whatever the news was, and then my mom asked me to shut it off. It was too much for her to listen to.
She was listening to what?
I was listening to the news that had broke.
Okay. Well, so if you're listening, we're talking about a scandal involving the newsboys. And I'm not going to get more specific than that. I don't want us to get more specific.
No.
I
don't know that we can.
No. And but I do want to get more specific about something that happened in the past.
Okay.
With that band.
Oh,
and then I want to maybe just throw out a challenge for people who are into Christian music.
Okay.
A takeaway.
All right, let's hear.
So, yeah, if you haven't read up on it, you can. It's up to you. But this isn't the first time for this band. Mm-hmm. I don't know why people aren't talking about this, but I wound up interviewing, and I know a lot of people did, a previous lead singer for the Newsboys named John James.
Okay.
And he was telling his story about the past.
Okay.
And his involvement with the band and why he left. And he left because he was totally messed up on alcohol, drugs, and with women.
Okay.
But they said he left to concentrate on his local church.
I feel like I remember you mentioning that. Yeah.
So I wondered when I interviewed him, like I kind of pressed him on it. Like, well, wait a second. Wait, isn't that a problem? Like they didn't level. That was my impression. They didn't level with people what's going on.
Yeah.
And I still don't have an answer for that. I went back and read an interview he did with somebody else, but just so this is a previous lead singer. So Newsboys has been kind of several different iterations.
It's like a franchise, and you can kind of put people in, take people out.
Right.
Yeah.
And John, I think, came back for a tour to do a reunion type thing. I think I may have that wrong, but I think that's right. Mm-hmm. Or he spoke on a tour, like, here's my testimony.
Okay.
So it's all like celebrated that he's been restored.
Sure.
Which is great. If somebody's get their life back together after divorce and the family's torpedoed, and I hope his wife and kids are doing well. Mm-hmm. But I'll just pick it up in this story. It says, it was at this point that John began to take solace in alcohol. Now this is on the tours.
Okay.
Newsboys back in the day. Mm-hmm. I think for myself, I worked hard, he said. I'm quoting him. We concerted hard. We toured hard, but we also played hard. And for me, alcohol was an escape. Obviously, it wasn't something that was public knowledge. I justified it as it helped me to process and deal with the pressure. Now, whether that was a crutch or not, I think after a while it became the dependency where I needed that constantly. And eventually it really started to take a grip in my heart and my life to the point where alcohol was a serious problem. It's amazing how you can be in front of so many people, but we do such a great job of hiding what's really going on. We become masters of hiding the truth. Why? Because we have an image to uphold. We spent hundreds of thousands of dollars creating this allure, this perception of perfection. And the last thing we want people to know is we're actually just real people who deal with real problems.
Yeah.
But here's a question. Hadn't the band seen this deterioration in him? He pondered, quote, I think they did, but sometimes, you know what? We can see stuff, but we just don't want to admit it. Because you've got to understand that we're part of a big machine. It's our career. It's our livelihoods. Actually, you've got many families involved, many people involved, their livelihoods, their careers. It's a big money-making machine. Sometimes you don't want to see problems, even though they're slapping us in the face. They're screaming out to us, but sometimes we choose not to see them. And sometimes, honestly, we become blind to them, even though to others on the outside, it can be so blatantly obvious. It's almost like we choose to be blind and not see these things when we don't want to. Here's another question. Was John ever involved in recreational drugs as well? Quote, unfortunately, yes, I was. And again, that's not something I'm proud about. I'm really ashamed about that, especially when I left the band. Like I said, there were no restraints once my career with the band came to an end, and I confided in the newsboys and was forced to step down. Then all restraints were taken away, and the alcohol spiraled out of control, the drug use. I got to the point I was spending hundreds of dollars supporting a cocaine habit.
Wow.
Really, I just started to lose perspective on life and everything. Picking up the article. Fans will remember when it was announced that John had left the Newsboys, a statement was issued saying he was returning to Australia to start a preaching ministry. Nothing could have been further from the truth. Quoting John, you've got to understand, love covers a multitude of sins, you know. Possibly protecting me? Possibly protecting themselves? What would have been better? To say John's an alcoholic and a drug addict who's been unfaithful in his marriage, he's been sleeping around, his wife left. How would that have helped me? I think the best thing for me was probably to protect me. My wife and I were dealing with enough rubbish and the pressures and everything, so I think they really covered for me, and maybe a bit of that too was to protect the Newsboys' best interests. Talking about his business interests.
Sure.
They asked him, were you ever drunk on stage? Yes, I was.
Okay.
So the naivete that we would have to be guilty of to entertain the idea that people don't have any clue what's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, just be honest. This is there's nothing fun about that. Mm-hmm. But it's like, recognize this is a money-making enterprise. Mm-hmm. It is an industry.
It is.
Now, if a song inspires you to think about God and it's written by flawed human beings, there's value in that. Mm-hmm. But do not for 1 second, I can't tell you enough for anybody, do not for 1 second think that they are in some spiritual place because they are making money off of Christian stuff. Uh-huh. Maybe they are in a great spiritual place. Maybe I am. Maybe I'm not. Maybe you are. Maybe not. But we're all on one level. And Jesus says that. I'm amazed how people blow that off in Matthew 23, where Jesus is like, no, you're all.
There's only one teacher.
There's only one level.
Yeah.
I'm your teacher. Enough.
Yeah.
And I just heard Dallas Willard talking about this today because somebody introduced him. I was listening to one of his talks, and they introduced him as Dr. Willard. Mm-hmm. Now, if anybody had the claim to be called a doctor of philosophy, PhD, he was the chair of the philosophical department at USC, the chair, and a first-rate philosopher and professor. And he said very kindly, I appreciate that. This isn't he's like, I'm not trying to scold what this guy just said. Thank you so much. And he used his name. But just so you know, Jesus talked about this thing with the titles. Mm. He wants us all on one level. So he says, if it's okay, you just call me Dallas. But we are so entitled, and it's like this codependent relationship where we need people to be super Christians to go, look, we can do it. See, they're super, and they're providing us super stuff. We can, and then they need us to act like that, so they can continue their lifestyle. Which, frankly, like the idea that people are drunk on stage and like the other guys are just like, what? No way. We're on the same bus.
Yeah, I think that's what I was like, okay. Because some of the statements that were put out of the shock and horror, like, we've been on tour. Your lives are intertwined on tour.
Yeah.
You are with that person all the time, or people all the time. It is very difficult to hide when you're on tour. So then it becomes very disingenuous to me personally, just knowing what I know of tour life, when you're like, whoa, we had no idea. We are shocked and saddened, and please, if anyone knows anything.
Without reference to this happened before?
Yeah, that's the thing.
Just be real.
Yeah, I was like, oh, no.
I wrote something for a Christian radio thing, industry website, and it's not great, but I thought I would read this for the podcast.
It was wonderful.
Oh, thank you. So if you listen to the podcast very much, you'll be familiar with some of these themes, but I just wrote a note because I know what usually happens in this sort of thing. I've been through this. There's a few things. One is Christian radio will feel a need to respond moralistically.
Sure.
And I understand that drive. So it's like this will happen before somebody gets divorced, somebody gets in some sort of a public thing, or somebody brings somebody up on stage who's known for other stuff, or what. Like, how do we navigate this? Should we keep them on the air, or should we? And they're like, well, if that person's truly repentant, we can add them back onto our playlist if they're truly repentant. Well, but if she, but did she really say? And then she needs to say she's sorry to us before we put her back on the. Or, I mean, I've literally been through this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, don't do that. So I talk about that a little bit. Don't be morals police when it comes to what you're adding and subtract, because you don't know.
No.
And
we are literally going by the cover of a book.
Yeah, you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know. So humility would dictate that you don't be like, oh, that person's truly repentant. How in the world would you know that? Here's the other thing that often happens too. Is like the take on the air will be, well, okay, this person may have assaulted these other people, but we're all humans. We're all sinners. Like, yeah, we're all sinners, but people should, well, I say this in the article. Here we go. Here's the article.
Yeah.
Hypocrisy, CCM, and what do we do now? There's nothing about me that makes me especially qualified to write about this. I've been around CCM radio for a while, as have many of you, and given my upbringing, which is a long, difficult story, I've certainly had to struggle with how to deal with in-your-face religious hypocrisy. So maybe that's where this comes from. Some pain, a lot of reflection, and finding my faith growing in spite of it all. Here are a few things I think we can do. Again, this is written to Christian radio people. For ourselves and our listeners and the many broken people in, quote unquote, the industry. Number one, don't make music choices based on morality. I've seen radio programmers put in such an odd position trying to sort through who's really a Christian. And is that person truly repentant? And is this person's heart good? Be humble about this. You and I have no idea. None. Paul acknowledges this in 1 Corinthians 4. He says he doesn't know others' real motives and doesn't even know his own. Honest humility is very freeing because we no longer have these awkward debates about the righteousness of others. So don't base your decisions on your public or your personal perceptions of goodness and repentance. Instead, make the decisions based on your station's mission statement. Is adding that artist or continuing with that band in your rotation actually a distraction from the real message your station purports to convey? Maybe so. Then you can politely let a listener who complains know, well, we just feel like it's a distraction right now and we want to focus on Jesus instead of the artist. Another thing you can do, personally and genuinely pray for people. Really pray. Like seriously, it's not just a Christian throwaway thing. Including the perpetrator or perpetrators or those who cover up for them. Some will say we should only pray for victims. I understand that sentiment, but it doesn't square with what Jesus says about even praying for our enemies. In a couple weeks, I'll be back at R.J. Donovan Max Security Prison in San Diego, and I'm honored to be there. I'll be speaking to guys who are almost all murderers, some of the serial variety. I'm honored to be among them. As Jesus people, we pray for both victims and perps. We want, quote unquote, fallen stars, many of which battle real, intense public shame, to find the real peace, wholeness, and the healing that has clearly eluded them. Another thing, quit doing the pedestal thing. Radio people can be very guilty of this, fawning over musicians, celebrating the already celebrated. Maybe it's the most natural thing in the world, but like a lot of natural inclinations, we need to grow out of them. We need to model for our listeners that this kingdom works differently from the world. We put the last first and the first last. Maybe we double down on centering our listeners instead of celebs. We can appreciate what musicians do, sure, but the people listening to us while, say, driving to their work at the water treatment facility, they're saving our lives. We're doing celebs themselves a favor by lowering the pedestals. The stage is not a healthy place. We're doing people a favor by treating people equally. Let's not treat people like rock stars and then be shocked when they fall apart like, rock stars. Another point, avoid this take. Hey, we're all sinners. Yes, of course, we're all sinners, but it's like the bumper sticker error. Christians aren't perfect, just forgiven on the car ahead of you that just cut you off. So people shouldn't expect us to act any differently from anyone else? They absolutely should expect us to be different. They should expect us to be disciples of Jesus. They should reasonably expect us to be growing in peace and self-control and gentleness and the other fruit of the Spirit. We are supposed to be different. Instead, here's a way to talk about hypocrisy when it's public and obvious. And this is something we say on the show a lot. Mm-hmm. We're always going to have hypocrites around us. Jesus did too. There will always be people in public or maybe in your personal life who are leading double lives. This is both horrible and not surprising. But, and this is key, I decided long ago I will not let hypocrites chase me away from the best relationship of my life. Mm-hmm. Don't let them do it. They may have made my life miserable in the past. They may still be awful people, but I will not give them that power. I will continue to walk with God. My relationship with God is my source of joy and purpose and a relentless, pervasive sense of peace that does not depend on circumstances. His words are life to me, and when I put them into practice, life-giving to all those around me, starting in my heart and home. So yes, hypocrisy is terrible. Jesus called it out. But no way will I walk away from the very Jesus who acknowledged human sin and then did something about it. I share that with listeners often because we all need to hear it. People are openly looking for this peace, maybe more so than ever in my lifetime. Let's offer it to them. So that was my thing to the industry.
Did you get a lot of response?
I did, a lot of good response.
Good.
I misspelled there and put the other kind of there in there.
That's fine.
No, it's not. Still driving me crazy.
Well, I mean, because you're of your grammar situation.
Situation? Pathology?
Whatever word you want to put there.
Thank you.
Yeah.